Hello and welcome to another episode of Friar Territory on the Foul Territory Network. I'm your host, Kyle Glaser, joined by three-time Gold Glove Award-winning center fielder Mike Cameron, joining us live from a beautiful beach in the Dominican Republic. Mike, how you find it out there?
Kyle, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, I am calling you from what is it, Surfers Beach down in Dominican. So it's gorgeous. It's windy. Um, I didn't think I could give you a better situation from where I am about Padres baseball, other than a beach a little bit east of the beach of what you're used to over there in San Diego. So I'm
Oh, yeah.
coming live from Dominican. Live from the beach.
I love it. I'm definitely jealous of where you're at. We got some good sun right now in SoCal, but where you are looks particularly beautiful. Mike, last time when we talked last week, there was a lot of discussion, obviously, about Padres ownership, what was going on with the team. We talked about some more in our first episodes with Heath Bell. We had a special episode with Michael McCann, law professor from the University of New Hampshire's Franklin Pierce School of Law, to break down the legal side of it. Obviously, everything going on with ownership is hanging over the Padres right now. This week, I want to turn a little bit more toward the current roster, talk about the players, talk about what's going on the field, really talking about all the stuff that we love and what everyone I think would prefer to be talking about. Padres hosted FanFest over the weekend, and I thought there was some really positive developments. We learned a few things. One, Xander Bogaerts is going to be the everyday shortstop, which I think everyone knew. Adrian Morejon is going to be in the bullpen as opposed to rotation, which again, not a surprise. I think everyone expected that would be the outcome. But there was a really interesting conversation where AJ Preller openly acknowledged that in order to build a championship caliber roster, the Padres need to add, in his words, a bat or two and an arm or two. And I thought it was good because just look, in my experience, being a national writer, talking to all 30 organizations, you'd be amazed, man. Some teams, some GMs have rose-colored glasses looking at their rosters and think they're way better than they are. And I always think it's a sign of a healthy organization when they can be open and honest and say, yeah, we need to get better. What we have isn't enough. I thought that was good to hear from AJ Preller, just being very open about it. In your experience, I mean, you've seen it so many times. GMs or execs are saying one thing, and you're like, yeah, I don't know about that. It's always refreshing to hear. Yeah, we need to get better. We know it, and they're open and honest about it.
Yeah, Kyle, most definitely. I think when you're a lot more deliberate and honest about the shape of your roster and your team from that perspective, uh, you build a little more trust, and your actual players on your team trust you a lot. I don't know if you're telling the players that are there one thing and then telling the people another thing. But like most people that are around baseball can tell when you have a good roster or not. They also understand what you're going through from the standpoint of the San Diego Padres, knowing that there's not probably going to be significant change in the roster. Um, and so to the point to where you know that you need some additional roster pieces is because you're willing to try possibly as out there as you're trying to trade one or two of your best starters and Dylan Cease, Michael King, per se, to bring additional pieces back to help out your roster. But obviously, if you're subtracting what is supposed to be part of your strength, it's going to be very difficult to compete against anyone in that NL West, and obviously the Dodgers being on top of that with the Diamondbacks getting better. Look, I'm not gonna put nothing past Padres. If their arms are healthy and they have this type of health, then they definitely have a chance to be successful. And then obviously, the Arizona Diamondbacks that's added some pieces that were just one game out of playoffs last year. So it's just better to explain to the people where you are, what you have, and then the respect level is so much better to whether you don't leave the people guessing. And the honesty is still the best policy. Best policy, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, no question. Again, I always think it's a sign of a healthy organization when they're open and honest about what they have and they're not trying to fool themselves or anyone else. So it was good to hear. Again, it's not that it was breaking news to anyone who's been following this team, but it was good to hear that they recognize it as well. And with that, Mike, we have seen the Padres make a few moves over the last week. They signed their first major league free agent, Elias Diaz, catcher, 1 year, 3.5 million. They brought him in at the end of last year after Colorado had gotten, had moved on from him. But at his peak, he was an all-star catcher and hey, all-star MVP, one of the most surprising all-star game MVP awards ever. But he shores up catching. They still have a lot of roster holes. And today I wanted to talk about the biggest one, and that is left field. Jurickson Profar signing with the Braves for 3 years and $42 million leaves a big hole, both production wise in the lineup, defensively, and of course in the clubhouse. There aren't that many left field options left, but we're going to go through them. Before we get into individual players, I want to ask you, look, you were one of the best center fielders of your generation. What did you want in a left fielder when you were looking over and you had a guy playing next to you? What for you made someone a good left fielder that you wanted to play with?
Well, Cal, number one, it just depends on what type of left fielder you have. Is it an offensive, type of left fielder,
Yeah.
or a guy who's more primarily, suited for defense, and or I should say the more powerful guys that are out in left field, the slugger types. So you're gonna do a little bit of work defensively as a player, but you're always also trying to help your left fielder just kind of, you know, um, maintain, positive. Uh, I guess positive production on the defensive side. Just not giving up the big play. When you run in the gap or you run in and the ball goes over your head and you give up 2 extra bases, that type of thing. Just really just trying to play a solid, fundamentally sound left field out there. I've had some good ones. I had two really good defenders and left fielders in or three. Ryan Braun was very good. Ryan Braun could do it on both sides of the ball, because he was a shortstop who couldn't catch the ball on the ground and short, so they moved him out of left field. I had Dave Roberts in San Diego. Um, I also had Randy Wynn in Seattle. I had Cliff Floyd in New York, but he was more of a banger. Cliff had the bad legs from time to time, but he was adequate. So, when you have, and then I had Albert Bell in Chicago and Greg Vaughn in Cincinnati. So, when you have these type of lumbering type of guys that, typically on your fourth, fourth hole hitter, it makes it a little more difficult to ask for much defense in those guys. So, when you have an opportunity to play with a guy that can do it on both sides, man, it's a special time to have, those type of players on your team. What San Diego is looking for right now is it right now a veteran guy like Tommy Pham, maybe reunion with Tommy Pham, um, or maybe it's some of the younger guys that he's there to help out, maybe to be in a continuous situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up Tommy Pham, obviously former Padre. When looking at the available free agent left fielders, it's a pretty thin market. And again, I want to play a little game of let's find the Padres a left fielder with you here. At this point last week, there were two players that I thought represented good potential buy low opportunities because, again, just given their current payroll constraints, given ownership, the Padres don't have a lot of money to play with right now. So you have to look at low cost options. That's just realistically where they are. And the two options I thought represented good buy low opportunities were Austin Hayes and Dylan Carlson. Well,
Mm.
since then, Austin Hayes signed a 1 year, $5 million deal with the Reds. Dylan Carlson signed a 1 year deal for just under $1 million with the Orioles. So they're off the board. In terms of free agents, you have this group of, older veterans who obviously have a lot of experience, but production wise are kind of in the down part of their career. They're in their mid to late 30s. It's Mark Canha, Tommy Pham, David Peralta, Adam Duvall, Robbie Grossman, those types. There's two somewhat everyday players that we can talk about on the free agent market. One is Alex Verdugo and one is Eddie Rosario. Each of them are coming off bad years. Each of them have some pluses. Each of them have some minuses. When you look at Alex Verdugo and Eddie Rosario, I'll get what I think of both of them in a sec. But from your perspective, do you see either of them as guys that could, play everyday left field on a playoff caliber team, or would you be looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, look, uh, each one of these guys had, Verdugo born, I guess he's from the California area, LA area. So him coming back over that way, being from Mexico, it would be a really good opportunity for him to kind of bounce back in that sense. Um, and the second, who did you say the second guy was? The second guy was
Eddie Rosario.
okay, Rosario, obviously, that still he's playing center field for Puerto Rico. I just saw him playing the other day, center field, in the Syria Caribbean series, and he has ample amount of experience, and he also has playoff experience too. So you know what you're gonna get there. Probably not like the full basket of um, OPS plus in a sense. We're not talking like one of these one 110 and 115, 120 type of guys. So, you're probably looking at league averaging a little bit below that. But, at this particular point, you gotta put some people out there. Otherwise, you're gonna put a rookie out there that's trying to find his way on a team that's trying to compete still with the type of payroll that you have, looking the talent that you have on the team, you're still trying to get to the playoffs with the caliber team that you have right now. So it just a matter of what route would the team like to take in order for them to be um, successful, given the situation with the management, upper management, and everything. So it's just a matter of how Triller wants to go about doing this, but you got to bring somebody in. You can't run out here with all the young rookies here and think it's going to be beneficial to you in this particular point in spring training or heading into spring training.
Yeah, how did Eddie Rosario look to you? You said you were actually out there watching him in the Caribbean series. How do you look to you?
Yeah, I mean, he looks good. I saw this on TV. So obviously, seeing him play center field over there, I'm like, wait a minute, I want to tell you got on the team, you got Eddie Rosario playing center field. But obviously, playing winter ball is definitely different than playing big league baseball, on every given day. If I had my choice, I would probably would go with a more hungrier guy, you know, um, and bringing out the left fielder out there who has experience being out on that West Coast, used to playing in LA and everything. So, I probably would take that route. But Zario look good, man. I mean, the winter ball though is always special. It's a special time, especially in the series Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with each of these guys, and where I think you probably look elsewhere from my perspective, I start with Alex Verdugo. He obviously came up with a lot of prospect pedigree, showed some good things early, but he's been in decline for the better part of 4 years now. His average, his on base percentage, the production's gone down 4 years in a row. And I think the main concern for me, where I don't think he's a great fit for the Padres, look, personality wise, there's all different personalities that go in and mesh in a different clubhouse, and maybe he'd be fine somewhere, one place, but not the other. The last thing the Padres need is another nonchalant player who kind of shuts down the moment things
Yeah,
get tough. And
yeah.
that's who Alex Verdugo is. That's who he's always been. He's just very nonchalant, and he kind of shuts it down when things don't go his way. And the Padres have too many of those guys in the clubhouse already, and I don't think it'd be a good addition. So for me, I actually think Eddie Rosario, if they went the free agent route, might be the one, just because look, he had a bad year last year. There's no way around it. But, the year before he was still productive, 250, 20 homers, 80 ribs. What you're going to get with Eddie Rosario. He'll do some boneheaded things on the bases and defensively. But, again, at his best, he's a steady offensive performer. I actually think the trade market is where there's some opportunity. And we all know AJ Preller loves to make trades, big
Yes.
creative trades. So there's a couple of potential players out there. Mike, you mentioned, there's obviously the rookies and there's the older veterans, but there's those guys in the middle, the young players who have gotten to the big leagues, shown flashes, and maybe just need a more consistent chance. Where are you at on a guy like that, just based on all your experience, bringing in all different types of players, maybe, bringing in a guy who maybe, a little bit like where you were early in your career, where you got into the majors, you'd had some success and ups and downs, but, just needed that everyday shot. And you finally really clicked, once you got into your mid 20s.
Yeah, Cal, this is a good time for me. I know it's not really saying, but I would have loved for my kid to be over there playing in San Diego, to get a chance to play in that ballpark and be obviously knowing that he can play center field. But I am all for guys that has those, you know, year and a half, 2 years, got some big league experience, and just really need a chance to run out there on the field daily and not look over their shoulders, knowing that their at bat's going to be, you play one day and then you sit for three, and then you may get a pinch hit and all that kind of stuff. You can't find any rhythm, because when they send you to the minor leagues, to their AAA team or whatever it is, you play every day. And now you're asking someone to come up um, to be a platoon player in the big leagues, which should be the most important place you should be playing every day until given notice that you can't really play in this league. But you have to have the opportunity to make adjustments. You have to have the opportunity to find your strength and weaknesses on a team. And I'm all for the middle of the pack guys. Those 1 and 2 year, 2 year guys that are still trying to find a roster spot to get a chance to play somewhere. Put a guy out there, see what he can do for a month and a half or 2 months or whatever it may be. So, and I guess it just all depends on what the team is actually uh, looking at as a are we a player caliber team, or we're just trying to get this roster filled out so we can get through this year. But given the talent and the payroll that's already there, you gotta be trying to be one of those playoff teams behind the Dodgers, per se, in 2025.
Yeah, and I think one of the positives about bringing in someone who's maybe, again, has some big league time, just needs a chance, or in some cases maybe is a more proven big leaguer, but going to a new spot could really help, unlock even more. The nice thing is they don't have to come in and be a superstar. We've talked about there's a good top six in this order. They just come in and be a solid everyday player who, gives them good at bats, hits, 6, 7, 8. That's all they need. So there's a little less pressure on some of those guys. There are a couple of potential trade options that jumped out to me looking at places where maybe guys either it's a team where there's an outfield glut and maybe some guys don't have an avenue to everyday playing time, or if it's a rebuilding team that might be looking to trade away a productive veteran, get some young players back to help them. A couple of players that jumped out to me looking through it, Heston Kjerstad with the Orioles, former second overall pick, really good
Yeah,
player, doesn't really good hitter, doesn't really have a path to everyday playing time right now with Colton Cowser, Cedric Mullins, and the Orioles signing Tyler O'Neill.
yeah.
That's May's debut last year, raked in AAA, has some health issues, but he can really hit. I think he's a good player. The Rangers are a team that has an outfield glut right now. Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, Adolis Garcia, Leody Taveras. I mean, look, they're not trading Wyatt Langford. I think we know that, but there
Yeah.
is an outfield glut right now, and I think the Padres could get creative with some moves there. One player I actually really like is Spencer Steer with the Reds. He's
Mm.
bounced around a little bit, played some left, some third, some first, had a great rookie year 2 years ago. Was solid last year, not as good of a year, but he can hit. And the Reds right now have a whole glut of position players who can play a bunch of different places. Right now, he's slated to be their first baseman, but he primarily played left field last year. Spencer Steer is actually a guy that really jumps out to me as, the Reds have other position players. He's got 2 years of big league experience. He's been productive, hit for power, has some versatility. That's actually a move I would like to see the Padres make. Again, whether it's Kjerstad, the Rangers, or Spencer Steer with the Reds. That's the one that intrigues me the most. What for you are some of the things that you want to see, the Padres bring in? Do you think they should prioritize offense or defense? Because in the case of Kjerstad and Steer especially, they're definitely more offensive than defensive.
Definitely. If you're talking about those particular two guys, it's definitely an offensive move. And Kerstad, he's left-handed, so I'm pretty sure the Padres could use some left-handed power
Yeah.
in a sense because he's going to hit in the big leagues. That's for sure. Spencer Steer, more cartoonish. I haven't seen him. Is it right-handed power in Cincinnati, or is his right-handed power that could participate at in Pittsburgh play?
Yeah.
So just a matter of where they want to go out and try to find. I call them, those first 1 year, 1, 2 guys that are trying to find themselves a little bit of opportunity. You can go many different aspects to bring in guys that could pair up. It could be sometimes it could be a platoon situation, you know. But you're gonna have to bring in because I think you have a young kid that's already out there that's supposed to be very good and to relieve some of the pressure off of him. this is the opportunity to bring in one of those guys that, got 1 or 2 years that probably gets 150 at bats or, you know, close to 175, 200 at bats in the big leagues. It would be a great opportunity for them to AJ Cole to bring in someone of that caliber. If you're not going to go all in and try to bring one of the big boys over there, but it also a lot of construction. Do you want some more left-handed power? Listen, you got plenty of right-handed power for that, so you want a left-handed guy to bring, and that would fit the bill of Kjerstad very well
Yeah.
in
No, I agree.
2025.
I do think Kjerstad would be a great addition. Two guys who are more a little more veteran side. Taylor Ward with the Angels. Look, the Angels are a team that they are building up to try and compete a little bit, but they've had a lot of struggles. Ward's a productive hitter. He's got 2 more years before he hits free agency. He signed an ARB deal for just over 7 mil. So again, he's affordable. He's productive. If the Padres wanted to trade for someone a little more veteran, Brandon Marsh with the Phillies is interesting as well, just because he can play center, he can play left. If the Phillies decide they'd rather have Johan Rojas in center than Marsh, again, left-handed, not so much a power bat, but good athlete out there. These are all potential options. Again, the Padres are always very, very creative in trades. I'll be curious to see what they do because look, everyone can see they need an upgrade in left field.
Yeah,
There's not a ton of options out there, but there are guys. Mike, we do need to address who they're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would bring up one other guy. Right now, since Profar signed in Atlanta,
Yeah.
they feel like Kelenic fell back a little bit. That's another guy that can play all three positions out there that has some pop that can play left field. He's in that 1, 2, 3 year mode too, still trying to find himself. So if you want to pair him up with right-handed bat, pursue him in that option, there's another guy that you can bring in if you're willing to trade off some pieces to bring a guy in uh, of this particular type of caliber.
Yeah, I know Jared Kelenick's interesting. I joined the Braves podcast here on the Foul Territory Network yesterday, Hammer Territory, and they were talking about wanting Dylan Cease and the Braves potentially acquiring him. And they mentioned Kelenic could be a possible part of the return there. I mean, if that's the case, Kelenic is probably the third piece in a return. I think we have to acknowledge
Yeah.
he just has not been very good in the major leagues. He showed some flashes 2 years ago in Seattle. It looked like maybe he was finally figuring it out. And last year was just another bad year, 231, 286, 393. And he's another guy who you run into some issues with at times, being nonchalant, at other times being way, way, way too worked up and fiery and getting himself in trouble. So, again, I think that if he came over in a trade, he would have to be kind of the I wouldn't even say the second guy, the third guy you get in a trade. And maybe you take the shot, but I don't think he can be the main guy. I mean, Mike, it's interesting because I want to talk about this in the context also. We have to address Tirso Ornelas, the rookie who's currently slated to play left field for the Padres. But when you have a guy who, like you said, has had some ups and downs early in his career, had some struggles maybe, but is still young. How do you separate the guys that maybe, hey, he just needs a shot versus the guy of I just don't know about this. I don't think it's going to happen.
Uh, yeah. I'm a little more forgiving than uh, obviously the numbers per se. I feel like that, and partly because Kyle, I was probably that player. Real high
Yeah,
regard, had great rookie first year coming out of Double A, going Triple A, having a good year, uh, finishing like fifth in rookie of the year, and then completely just go to shambles my second year. It took me to play winter ball and get traded to go to Cincinnati to realize that, okay, like it's there. It's just that I was killing myself mentally
yeah,
and trying to do too much. And
yeah,
so now, as I look at it, when moving in this particular route right now, I think that I personally feel like I could give guys a little more opportunity, give them more of a chance to play because look, and I know that this is a business and you got to move how you got to move, but I like to still, entrust the fact that guys are being written off very early after 1 or 2 years because their OPS is not 125 or their OPS plus is not 125 or whatever they do. If I can see signs of that, what may have caused the guy to come off. If a guy normally walks a lot, Why is he not still walking in this? Or why is he chasing so much? There's many different aspects that I'm looking at and looking for to find a reason just not to really like push him, brush him off to the side just yet.
It's a good point. Again, I think we live in a very impatient society in general. Everyone wants a lot of that instant gratification, and that's very, very true in baseball. And even front office officials talk about a lot. That there's a tendency to not be very patient with guys. And I've always said, trading a young big leaguer before they turn 26, just because they've struggled earlier in their career, it can often be a little premature. I think with Kelenic again, it's interesting. You mentioned for you it was more of a mental thing, and that's always been a big part of the deal with Jared Kelenic. The physical
Yeah.
skills and talent has always been there. He just has always been a guy who's super, super, super intense to the point that he spirals when things go poorly. Handling failure is something he has always struggled with from the time he was drafted.
Yeah.
How much, when you look at these young guys and they struggle, do you feel like it's mental versus physical, and how much does one play into the other?
Yeah, I've known Kelly since he was 19 years old, playing in West Virginia, so Charleston, West Virginia. Yeah, he's fiery. He never struggled before, but obviously when the struggles did kick in, they were in the higher levels, and when you're in the big leagues and the struggle, it just snowballs, and it's very difficult if you don't get a put yourself in a space where you control your emotions enough to you to go out and be successful. And the failure part, the failure, is there. It's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
how do you handle it constantly? How do you prepare yourself constantly to handle those type of things? And I think that his last year in Seattle was a learning experience when he ended up breaking his foot or something like that because he kicked something or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Man, man. And then his first year in Atlanta, I think he was trying so hard to make some adjustments in the swing. Didn't have a Triple Jones in your ear to try to help him, with some of the swing changes or whatever. And then you just kind of like get falling out, out of grace with the manager. And that presents a lot of mental challenges for you when you're supposed to be the guy that's supposed to be pretty good. You started to really challenge yourself in a sense, and I think psychologically that's very tough, no matter how you look at it. Literally.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. You got two young left-handed hitting outfielders who, could use a chance to play every day, maybe get a little change of scenery. Heston Kjerstad, Jarrett Kelenic. Who you taking?
I'm taking Kjerstad right now. I know
Okay.
he's a bopper. That's a bopper.
Yeah.
I'll deal with whatever I got to deal with out in left field, but I'm
Yeah.
taking Kjerstad because he's gonna hit. I'm telling you, he's going. He just hasn't got the opportunity
Yeah.
either at first base or outfield over there with the Orioles because they've been kind of like backed up with talent over there right now,
Yeah.
and it seems like it's still gonna be some sort of similar situation. Look, my son is in the midst of all this stuff over there again too, but
Yeah.
Kjerstad, he can hit. He can really hit. I'm taking him.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And
Heston Kjerstad would be the one that I would trade for as well. Obviously, he's not going to come cheap, but there's not an obvious spot for him to play right now in Baltimore, and I think that would be a nice addition for the Padres. Mike, we're talking about all the guys they could bring in. I feel like we do have to address the player they have in house right now, Tirso Ornelas, currently slated to be their opening day left fielder, and I think we need to talk about who he is as a player and kind of give him some credit where credit is due. So in terms of strengths, Tirso Ornelas, big, strong, physical, left-handed hitter, has real power. He's also a grade A human being. He's the kind of guy who shows up to the ballpark every day with a smile on his face. Teammates love him, and he works really, really, really hard. He's got a great work ethic. There was a point in Lake Elsinore back in A-ball, he was hitting 220, looked lost at the plate, couldn't catch up to upper 80 stuff. He went down, back down to Arizona, fixed his swing, and came back up and put in the work to shorten it up and get better. He's overcome some injuries. So I want to give the kid credit again. Big power, left-handed power, and he's a great kid. Where the concern is, and he also knows the strike zone, which is obviously a big part of it too. I think where the concern is, why most people see him as bench bat type as opposed to an everyday starter, is he's just a bigger dude. And so what happens is things can get kind of big, long, and slow in his swing, and there's just not a lot of explosiveness there. Defensively in the box, And there's a sense that if he got, 500-600 ABs over the course of the year, he'd be exposed a little bit, as opposed to if you match him up well off the bench and some good spots with 200 ABs, he'd probably be more successful. You saw so many young players come and go over the course of your career, guys who were hyped up, some guys maybe who were not too hyped up and exceeded expectations. When you saw a young guy come up, how quickly for you were you able to tell, like, hey, this guy has a shot versus, this ain't it?
Uh, for me, I've seen a lot of that come and go, Kyle. I think I'm more on the side once again of actually, for me, because it happened to me, and I understood it, so I understand what it's like. When you get a chance to just run out there and play every day, make the mistakes, make adjustments, however it may be, you're going to be better suited than someone deciding if you're a platoon player or not. Allow the player to decide if they are platoon ish or full platoon or whatever it may be. If you have if you have a talent that you say is supposed to be talented, then you have to like allow that talent to go out and bloom. You gotta let it go out and blossom, and give it a chance to see how they handle the league in itself.
Yeah.
Kids, with all these different technology today, kids can they be able to make some adjustments. It's still going to be hard. It's hard for the guys that play every day.
Yeah.
So the resilience of the players obviously is just understanding how fast can you make some of these adjustments. You just don't want to last 2, 3 months in the course of the season. If you give them some room to, work on their game, then they'll start to see some of that. And the best way to build confidence is to let a kid play and know that he probably not going to sit for the next 3 days. Let him go out there and find out if he can do this and know it. It won't happen in spring training. It's not going to happen in September. You got to do it in the big leagues if you say that this is a talent that's supposed to be out here playing. Possibly.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Mike Schilt made the comment at FanFest that, Tirso Ornelas has put in the work to turn himself into, a good player, and he'll come into camp with a shot to win the job. And again, I think it's fair to say most evaluators, both inside the Padres organization and outside, think he'll be best served, again, as that, left-handed power bat off the bench as opposed to a true everyday player. But this is where work ethic and makeup come in. It's kind of funny to me when I hear people, you know, talk about work ethic and makeup like they don't matter. To me, it's like
Yeah.
tell me you've never played baseball without telling me you've never played baseball. Like that stuff matters a lot. How much
Yeah.
for you do you put into that? Hey, this is a kid who's got a track record of overcoming injuries, overcoming adversity, putting in the work to make himself better. Because look, there was a point where it looked like he wasn't going to make it to Double A, let alone the majors. And to his credit, he's got himself on the cusp of the majors, coming off a very good year in Triple A. How much do you put into the makeup and work ethic and helping a guy maybe get to that next level?
It definitely helps, man. You have to have those attributes to consistently play professional baseball. Um, Regardless of how talented you are,
Yeah,
the game makes for you to constantly work on yourself daily, trying to build things in your craft, uh, try to build things in your craft. And I think the best thing that you could possibly do is I get a chance to talk to a lot of guys, you know, about themselves,
yeah,
and I just give them suggestions, like some of the things I do. Not trying to tell you what to do, but you have to have this character, man, to
yeah,
overcome some of the things that go on. I'm pulling for the kid to get a chance to go. When you these kids today, they see these things. They see the manager talking. They see the GM talking about these type of things. They
yeah,
see the fan graphs and the different the other social media things on there. So they know going into it. There's a lot of pressure going into this already. I'm pretty sure Lewis knows that it's an opportunity for him to prove that he's a major league player. I don't know. I think the manager always decides if you're going to be the everyday player in that lineup on a daily basis. And all
yeah.
you can do is work to not lose the opportunity in spring training instead of thinking that you have it made already.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Again, I'll say this again for Tirso Ornelas. If he goes out and exceeds expectations and, wins the job and does go out and hit, 250 with 20 bombs, I will be one of the happiest people around. And it's not a Padres thing. Just he's one of those kids who's really, really easy to root for. I say kid, I'm not that much older than him. I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But, again, always has a smile on his face, just a great guy, puts in the work. He's overcome so much. And so again, he's one of those players that, everyone in that clubhouse is going to love and going to root for. And I hope it works out. I do think when you take a step back and say, what would put the Padres in the best position to win this year, which is what they're trying to do, going out and getting a guy like a Heston Kjerstad, or maybe it's one of the more veteran guys that can get those everyday ABs, and you kind of ease Tirso in a little bit, as a bench player.
Yeah.
Maybe he comes up when guys get injured and get some everyday reps. I do think that would be the best possible scenario for the Padres. But again, there's a lot of moves still to be made. There's, I would say there's a lot of offseason left. We got about 6 weeks to opening day. So spring
Yeah.
training is on the corner. But look, we talked about it. The Padres always make moves late. We saw it with Craig Kimbrell. We saw it with Manny Machado. We saw it with Dylan Cease. The roster they have on February 3rd is not going to be the roster they have on opening day.
Most definitely. I'm pretty sure I'll see AJ Preller getting ready to go play basketball at 5 o'clock in the morning, come back sweating on the phone and trying to make a deal all the time. Sunrise. This guy, the only GM I know that stays in the team hotel. It's unbelievable. I used to see him all the time. He was right on the second floor. So I used to see him coming back from playing basketball as I'm going. Uh, as I'm going, to the stadium, he's coming back and playing basketball, making deals like at 7 o'clock in the morning, y'all. So he's definitely in deal making, that's for sure.
Yes, there's all the stories about AJ never sleeping, that he's always on the phone, always, talking baseball, making deals, working through things. So, yeah, if he's either making trades, scouting players, or playing hoops. That's pretty much, AJ Preller. So,
All the
we'll,
time.
yeah, we'll see what he's got up his sleeve, and we'll see if Heston Kjerstad's the pick, or if it's Tirso Ornelas, or if it's one of these other guys. We'll see what they end up doing. Mike, it was great talking to you again. Thank you so much for joining us from your vacation in the Dominican. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for accepting me in this light. Just I'm in the light, so in this light that you're giving me opportunity to be on right now. I know it can be a little bit windy and excruciating, but it's definitely tranquility and peace for me.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to talking to you again next week. Once again, this has been another episode of Friar Territory. Go ahead and give us a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever platform you're watching, listening. We'd love to hear from you. Some likes, some ratings, some reviews. Definitely want to hear from you all. This has been a lot of fun so far. We'll be back Thursday with Heath Bell. For Mike Cameron, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.